John McMullen is the perfect guy to bring in here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. John, as you have not been critical, but have been realistic in talking about the AAF, which I haven't seen the ratings for week number 2. But when you need a $250 million loan in week number 2, there may be some issues with your business plan moving forward here.
Yeah, I would say so. And that's not a loan. The guy essentially bought the league. So, that's what you get for $250 million. So,
was this something not foreseen by them? Like, were they kind of like in week 2, oh my gosh, we're just out of money already?
Well, and not week 2, week 1, they didn't make payroll in week 1. So if you talk about, remember, we asked
how's that possible?
Brad Childress, why Brad Childress left the league, why Michael Vick never took over. Now you have your answer. They weren't getting paid. And I think, in hindsight, if you hearken back to where this all started, Charlie Ebersol, who founded the league, the son of Dick Ebersol, was doing the 30 for 30 on the old XFL with his father's old partner, Vince McMahon. And that's where he got his job. But that's where he got the idea. But he also knew Vince wanted to do it again. And he wanted to get a head start. And they got a head start. But it's pretty evident now, confirmed by this, they cut a lot of corners to get that head start. And I don't think it's salvageable at this point. $250 million seems like a lot of money, but when you're trying to
not for something like this
size, exactly, it's not. So this is, I won't call it a death blow because it would have been a death blow if they didn't get the $250 million. But this is a clear indication this league is virtually dead in the water.
Well, how does that happen, John? Like, was he just hoping for the best and to get a big chunk of revenue in the first week or the first weekend? Was he just kind of cashing checks he couldn't pay? Was there an error? Or is this just basically all smoke and mirrors and the truth is out now and it's going to fold?
Yeah, I think it's all smoke and mirrors, to be honest.
Crazy.
If you – I got to do more reporting on it, and I have a number of emails out and text and trying to get in contact with people. Look, the TV and I talked about that with Mike before. It looked good on the surface when you're on CBS and TNT and NFL Network, but I already reported on the show they weren't getting paid for that. So you can talk about bringing on a prestige network. May look good, but it is smoke and mirrors because you're not getting paid for it.
How'd they not get paid for that? A big-time network like that not getting paid?
No. The big-time network isn't paying the AAF to air their games. Like, they pay $250 billion to air NFL games. They're not paying the AAF to put those games on. The AAF is saying, we want the exposure, so we'll go to your network.
I get it. I apologize. Misunderstood.
Exactly. So it was basically a barter system. It's cheap for the network.
Right.
It's viable programming. But I think people assume, the casual fan assumes they're getting money from that. They're not getting any. There's no revenue streams. And I brought this up. And it seems to be they were counting on this technology and in-game gambling and that turning the corner using that. I've mentioned I don't think that's a viable business plan. I think that's overblown, number one. But number two, and more importantly, they couldn't get up to speed with it for week one. So it's what we're talking about, cutting corners to try to get the head start. And obviously getting the head start was important for them, but it was a mistake in hindsight because they are where they are because they cut all these corners.
So could you see a situation where the league doesn't finish this season?
Yeah, I could. I mean, you know, the Carolina Hurricanes owner, essentially, as I said, he bought the league. He bought the league. So when we talked about Charlie Ebersol and Bill Polian was ahead of football operations, and they'll continue on in their sort of roles. But this is one guy's league now, so he can do what he wants with it. And we don't know enough about what his plans are at this point to understand what he wants to do, or even if this $250 million, by the way, is real. In other words, did he officially commit to throwing all this money in this league? They can say it. Charlie Ebersol can say it, but he said a lot of things. And I joked on Twitter today. I don't know, and people do this with sports all the time. You hear coaches talk, you hear players talk, you hear them in press conferences, on video, even on Twitter, and people act like that's court testimony, and it's under oath, and it's 100% above board. People can say what they say, and sometimes it's not true, and sometimes they're blowing smoke up here, you know what. So just because they're saying he's guaranteed to put $250 million in this league, maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. What he has done is save the league and been able to pay the players and make payroll so it continues on. But I don't know if we can guarantee anything with this league at this point.
So what is his $250 million investment cover exactly? Did he just buy them time for this week one? Are they good now for the rest of the year to make payroll to everyone they need to make? Or is this just
if that $250 million is real, yeah, that will certainly get them through a year. The payroll, $75,000 a year, 8 teams, about 50 players per team. That's in the $30+ million range. So they should have no problem making payroll from this point forward. If that's a real figure.
Yeah.
But it costs a lot of money to do this stuff, and it's not just payroll. You have to get the product out on the field. There's marketing. There's production. We're not even talking about the coaches and the executives and the previous investors who expect to get their money back.
So what's the role of like Polian?
Right.
I mean, this is a guy there's some prominent names that are attached to this.
Yeah, I mean, from the football standpoint, those guys are just I don't think they're a part of this, the business aspect. They were brought in on the football side, on the football operations side, to try to build the league. And to be honest, they're probably not getting paid or weren't getting paid either. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. And we'll have to see how that shakes out. I don't think they have much to do. In fact, I know they don't have anything to do with the business operation. So all the people on the football side are just trying to help this league develop, the players, the executive, the coaches, and they're stuck in a situation where there was no money to make payroll. Now there hopefully is.
How did they, this may seem like an obvious, stupid question, but how did they even get this far? Like, what money did they spend? It's just mind-blowing to me that you get this league up and running, and then week one you're like, oh, we have no money, we need help. I don't even get it.
Well, it's mind-blowing to me as well. I said, and Mike knows this, I said from the start, this league and the XFL, which hasn't even started, are ultimately going to fail. I've said that because the casual audience is not going to accept a minor league product. Even I wouldn't have bet on week 2 they needed $250 million to continue. I didn't think that was bad. But if you're a Netflix fan and you've seen that Fire Festival documentary that everybody's talking about.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of con men out there. And I'm not saying that's what went on here, but there were assurances made without the proper funding. I think it's fair to say that.
Right. Like in my mind, I would think that money would have already been put down or tied up. Like to get this thing all started in week 1, you can't pay anyone.
Yeah, it's bad. And I don't even think it's gotten to the point where people have recognized that what this means. Because I think everybody from a football standpoint was pretty happy with the league and thought it was relatively entertaining. The product was okay, wasn't great, but they enjoyed it. And I think they're hoping and rooting for this league to succeed. And so am I from an employment standpoint and players getting an opportunity and all that good stuff. And I think that hope and enjoyment of spring football is kind of clouding people's view of just what went on here and how bad this really is. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't get through week 1.
No.
I mean, the one thing I'll say about Vince McMahon, they have money. They'll be able to put on a season.
Well, they already put on one season. What was the ultimate demise of that? Was it just that they kept losing money hand over fist? Not that he couldn't do the second season, but that they were losing so much money that it just wasn't worth it? Or were they not going to have a TV? Were they not going to have a TV outlet?
They lost too much money, and they decided it wasn't viable moving forward.
So Ebersol essentially came in, had this like bravado, and then 1 weekend was basically out of money. Is essentially what happened here.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it went that far. Again, now that you look at it with this knowledge, you start. We asked that question. I remember talking about it on this show when Brad Childress just bailed out. And he said, well, why? Why at this stage would he bail out? I had no idea because he didn't have an NFL job. He clearly wanted to be involved. Same thing with Michael Vick. And you ask yourself, this is a week before the season has started to begin. So now looking back at that, well, we now know why. There's no money, and they kind of knew it. So
Wow.
It started before this, just I don't think people realized it.
Couple quick, that's unbelievable.
It really is.
Couple quick NFL things to hit on, obviously. I'm kind of sad because I'm watching these games. I'm enjoying having a league. You know, there's another league coming. You wonder if they're just better off combining the XFL and the AFL. They probably won't make it anyway. I mean, this doesn't mean if they put the $250 million guy, McMahon's not going to work with anybody, so you can't do that. I don't know.
No. And maybe this guy likes the league and wants to be involved, and now you'll have better financing behind it. And maybe it's a positive development.
Well, the big thing is, John, forget the payroll. Forget the payroll. It costs a lot of money to put on an NFL, like to put on the production of a live football game. Cost a lot of money.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I got into it on Twitter last year with another reporter who said, the players should just go on strike and start their own league. And I kind of laughed at him. And I said, this league generates $15 billion in revenue per year, the NFL. It takes years and history to negotiate those television contracts, which is responsible for over half that money. Now, the biggest names, you could have every single one of them. There's still no background of running a business. They're not going to walk into Fox and CBS and ESPN and say, oh, can you shift that $8 billion, over to us? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult to run businesses of this size. And I know, let's be honest, nobody likes rich people. But you know what? There's a lot of risk.
That's a pretty broad statement
that
right
is.
there.
I mean, I have some rich friends.
I'm saying if rich people, you constantly hear they don't pay enough in taxes. And this and that, and they should contribute more, and that's all fine, and that's all, pie in the sky, and it's easy to say it, but there's a lot of risk to say, you know what, I'm going to put up essentially billions of dollars to run this business, and you make a lot of money if it works, but you lose a lot of money if it doesn't work. And the first XFL, you talk about Vince McMahon, he's a billionaire. He was losing money to the point where he had to stop. And that's the kind of risk you put into these things. And I don't think the average person realizes that.
Stunning stuff. Did you see the ratings for week 2?
No, I assume they weren't very good. I expected, because that first week you're always going to have the curiosity. Plus, it was on lower profile. You never get NFL Network numbers. I think there was a TNT game.
CBS Sports Network is where I was watching the game. Yeah, and I don't think they're a rated network.
No numbers. Yeah, they get no numbers whatsoever. So it doesn't surprise me. You're not going to get ratings unless, TNT you're going to get ratings for, and obviously CBS, but they're not going to be good.
Yeah.
And nor did anyone expect week 2 to be that good.
I was entertained. That San Antonio-Orlando Apollos game had me locked.
Yeah, I don't think the football part of it is the problem. I mean, there's certain problems. The quarterback play, the offensive line play, but you could say that about the NFL. Yeah. I don't think anybody has criticized the football part of it. Obviously, the business plan, to be kind, was not a good one.
All right, we got more NFL to talk about on tomorrow's show. We're getting close to tomorrow. Is the tag date?
Today.
Is it today?
Tag.
Okay.
Yeah, it starts 2-week period. You have 2 weeks from today. Last day is March.
Oh, today's Tuesday.
5th.
I keep thinking today's Monday. Man,
yeah,
that got me again.
So the Eagles have 2 weeks to come up with their plan. March 5th is the final day. They're not going to do it today for certainly. If they're going to do it, it's going to be really late in the tag window. And the new league year starts on March 13th. So Eagles got to have a deal in place if they want to put that tag on Nick Foles.
All right, we'll keep our eye on that. Other Eagles news, NFL news tomorrow right here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. John McMullen at JF McMullen. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, guys.
That story's fascinating.